There's a lot of talk about IoT these days, and it stands for the Internet of Things. It's essentially anything, usually sensors, but all sorts of things, objects connected to the internet. So examples of this could be an internet-connected thermostat. Lots of people have these days. Or a camera on your doorbell, an internet-connected doorbell that when you press it, you're the other side of the world and you get an alert on your phone and you can talk to the person on your doorstep. But it can also be sensors, just really tiny little sensors that are measuring the ambient temperature around a city so that the local government can understand how, for example, global warming is affecting the city, or maybe internet-connected sensors on the roads so people can understand how much traffic is flowing along in real time. And it's really transforming how we understand the world. I think we're only at the start of actually the potential of these things, and as we collect more data, as we understand the world better through this data, it will open up all sorts of possibilities for making real-time decisions about how traffic flows, for example, or helping to decide how we design cities, all those kinds of things. And the Internet of Things is at the core of that.
So Internet of Things is connected to artificial intelligence in the sense that the Internet of Things is just a device that can send and receive, and it's tiny. And you put it into an inanimate object, and obviously it's sending loads of data. So you'd use the artificial intelligence to analyse the data and to either solve the problem or do something. So for example, you put some in the soil in your plant pot, and it tells a sensor that it's thirsty, it needs some water, and the sensor releases the water gauge and puts water in the plant. A bigger example would be if they manage to get it into the roads or into the railways so that they can tell if there's a fault line developing. Loads of data constantly, 24/7, but then there's a difference in the pattern that says, oh, there's a crack there, so the road can get fixed or the railway line can get fixed before it causes a disaster. So things where you have to do a manual process to measure something, you won't have to do so much in the future, potentially with the Internet of Things. And the ability to keep tabs on things that you normally couldn't keep tabs on, which could also be invasive, right? So all the teenagers in the world are like, no, thank you. We don't want tabs to be kept on us. So it will affect, I think, people's security and their privacy. If you get to the point where everything has a sensor and a camera in it, where's your privacy gone? If artificial intelligence gets married up with quantum computing, for example, that's an end to privacy. That's pretty much a nightmare for the security industry generally. How will you ever protect bank accounts, for example?
The Internet of Things is an exciting time where lots of different things, i.e. innate objects, will suddenly have the internet inside them. Let's say, for example, your fridge isn't normally a smart fridge, but now with the Internet of Things and because of the cost of sensors and the cost of computing has come down, your fridge might have sensors inside it. Your fridge might have artificial intelligence inside it. Your fridge might be able to tell when you need more eggs, etc. And could even all of them for you. This is the Internet of Things. This is when lots of different normal, what we might call dumb appliances suddenly become smart.
Open it up into the much wider world and you can put sensors on just about anything. You can reduce the chances that an engine fails before it is serviced. You can reduce the amount of downtime for a factory. You can make sure that roads are safe in sort of snowy passes before people cross them. Anything where you're using a small computer to sense data and connect it to the internet, that's the Internet of Things. And it's particularly interesting in an AI context because that information is now being used to feed artificial intelligences and give us useful information about the world, give them useful information about the world. And so if you like, the next step in AI is not you telling an AI what to do, it's an AI using the Internet of Things to understand the world and then doing things on your behalf.
So the Internet of Things have been around for many, many years. This really is the premise of sensors or things being connected to the internet. And the Internet of Things is in every location we may go to. In this building, in this city, there'll be things connected, whether it's a car parking sensor, so that we could say, I want to park in the city, and your phone will interact with that car park sensor and your sat-nav would direct you to it and you would know that it's available throughout your journey. If it's taken while you're en route, it would reroute you to another sensor. That same city may have environmental sensors as well to tell you the pollution or the weather in that particular location. But the real power of the Internet of Things has been in industry. So more and more things are connected, assets across field forces, the field force themselves, and in turn us. Where AI comes into this is it will allow us to do other things. So for example, if you hopped off a train in the city and you said coffee shop near me, your artificial digital assistant would then know exactly where you are and then could interact with other Internet of Things sensors or devices or assets, such as a coffee shop, and then your navigation system could direct you to that coffee shop.
I interviewed the inventor of the cell phone, Marty Cooper, a few months ago. He's 95, the font of all knowledge. And Marty said this, he said, we have this Internet of Things that everybody's obsessed with and we're working with. But actually, I think there's something else that's more important, and it's the Internet of People. And that's something that hasn't been fixed yet, because we're still in a state where there's poverty everywhere. There's half the world who doesn't have access to electricity, let alone the Internet. There's war that's happening at the moment. There are issues, people issues, that we haven't addressed or identified, but yet we're obsessed around trying to connect a light switch. So I think values and purpose comes into this equation. And when we start talking about the Internet of Things, is it just things and products that we're talking about, or actually is it the implication of people? And if it's your people and your staff, then perhaps a good starting point is to consider where the Internet of People is in your workplace.
Well, the Internet of Things is simply things that are connected to the Internet. So maybe it's your smart speaker, maybe it's your television. We've had a lot of news about cars at the moment. Cars are sending a lot of stuff over the air. You could call a car an Internet of Thing or a thing on the Internet. What it means to me from my security background is that it's a black box of data being transferred, and you don't have a screen on a lot of these things, so you can't interact with them and can't control what they're doing. So it's a bit of nervousness attached. But it has allowed really unprecedented connectivity. You can have your Ring camera on your front door, so you can know when you're in the office who's at your front door. And I mean, that's amazing. That's a really cool thing. But it's also the police are subpoenaing evidence from Ring cameras and sometimes being given leave in some US states to have it without needing a warrant or a subpoena. So it's that balancing. That's what the Internet of Things to me means. Two things. It means convenience, but it also means an awful lot of data being changed and moved around without our knowledge.